All right, so I took some time today, finished up the second leg in the second shoe. I have the cast shadow in there. I have similarities between, both legs. And one of the things I do want you to take a look at here is I went back in. You can see some of the stitching. All right, I really used a thin brush, and I did some of that orange accent stitching in there, right? Just to kind of give it a little bit more depth. But really take a look at how painterly it is, right? A lot of this is just overlapping, layering with different colors. I did on some areas go back in and I used the eyedropper tool, and I was able to select using the eyedropper tool the color underneath of it. So what I need to do now is I've got to work on the background. Now I've got my background here, right? I got the page from the book, okay? Again, that's on its own layer right here, layer 3, right? So now what I want to do is I want to include some sort of background that has transparency, but also has a color which is going to kind of complement the color that I have of the pant leg. So blue's complement is orange. So if I go somewhere in the orange or rust kind of a color, that's the color palette I'm going to use. The good thing about this is you could try different colors and pick one that works really well. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to create a new layer completely. It's like a whole new layer. All right, so right over here, you see the plus sign right above where it says blending. That's going to create a new layer. And the new layer, again, is going to come in and it's going to be transparent. Right now, that new layer is set on top of everything else. So what I want to do is I want to see how it's going to look with the legs in front of it. So I'm going to select layer 1. I'm going to drag layer 1 on top of layer 4. And just make sure that you come back and select layer 4 to work on. Okay, now I'm going to go to my brush and I'm going to pick some sort of rust color. I'm going to come over here and I'm using the blended brush with a really large size. Notice I adjusted the opacity here. All right, blending's about middle of the road, so if I use a different or a second color in there, it'll kind of blend almost halfway. But I have the opacity down to a 9. And again, if I come in and I just kind of drop in, I'm just clicking once. All right, and I can see how that color kind of looks. Maybe I want to get a little bit more of a rust orange kind of a color, right? If I click and drag, you can see how opaque it is. I can barely see a little bit of the text showing through on some of those areas. So I'm going to go through and try a couple colors. This one's actually kind of nice because, again, it's the complement to the blue color. I could put in a little bit heavier down at the bottom, or maybe go back a little bit and darken. Okay, I'm just undoing with the back. I could darken it up a little bit down here, make it appear as if there's a little bit of a shadow, right, from where the where the legs are, where it's standing, and I could come back up and I could put some of that in here. Maybe I want to go to a little bit of a yellow accent here, and I could punch in some yellow, just kind of putting in a little bit of a yellow to kind of add to it. And you can still see the text below, right? So if I take off the leg layer, all right, that's what I have in the background. You can see a little bit of a cast shadow implication here. Now what I want to do is I want to play around with that layer so it doesn't just have that spray painted look. Come back to my brush and come over here to the blend sketchy brush. I have the size almost all the way up at a 20. The opacity is low, the blending is high, and the scale is at a 12. Try different ways of looking at it. And here's remember what the sketchy brush does. All right? It just kind of adds, and I'm just clicking and dragging. You can see the opacity is really, really solid, almost like a solid brush stroke. So I'm going to go back and I want to see what happens if I bring that opacity up. All right, you see how dark that is? It's very, very, it's not transparent at all. So I want to keep that opacity down. so I can still see the text. And that is really what I'm looking for. And I could adjust the colors here, and I could come into the yellow, and I could kind of punch up some of the yellow in there. And let me go back out here and zoom out. And just add in, try it, have a little bit of fun with some of those other colors in there, and maintain the transparent quality of it. Again, this is only working, it's not covering over the layer with the legs because I'm on layer 4 over here. So if I take that out, you can see this is what I've done with that layer. I come back to my brush and I can play around more with that blending. Try to even out the space. All right, find something that I like that works well. And there's my, for now, there's my finished piece. I could always come back in, you know, push it a little bit further. Try to balance out those colors. And that's going to give me what I want for the completion of the project. Any other ideas that you guys have, please, please, please try it out. All right. There are ways, if I bring this down, and I bring this down, there are ways here. If I click on layer 3, there are ways that I could edit that layer, right? I could do the brightness and contrast. Okay, I could increase the brightness if I wanted to be a little bit more white. All right, see how I took some of the gray that was in there out? All right, so I have some other, I could invert it and see what it looks like this way. That's kind of cool. Let's see what that looks like now. If I go back to my layers, I bring my layer 1 up, I bring my layer 4 up, that looks pretty cool, right? So play around with it, try some stuff here in the edit, see what happens, and whenever you get to your strongest, what you think is your strongest overall look, obviously again, save it, and you'll use that finished piece to turn in based on the rubric. Please read the rubric. All right, guys, good luck.